You said that, and immediately I was like, I need to make a movie marathon where we watch Carrie and Jennifer's Body, and then this, where you just get to watch women murder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the fact of the matter is, Josh, I support women's wrongs, and you got to get with the program. It's 2023. That's feminism.
I guess I hate women, and I'll just have to accept that.
Okay, and that'll be the episode cold open. Welcome to Bible Boys, a podcast where two ex-evangelical siblings and an ex-Catholic non-sibling watch Christian media and either praise or condemn it. I'm Aaron.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Michael.
This week, we continue our spooky season with the psychological thriller, Saint Maud. Before we play Homophobic or Just a Nurse, please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, like and comment on our video, and follow us on Twitter at The Bible Boys, and on Blue Sky at thebibleboys.bluesky.social.
Yeah, this is like your stereotypic Michael pick for spooky season. I feel like I've really given us everything that we need. There's gayness, there's Catholicism, there's horror, there's body horror.
Yeah, I feel like every spooky season you're like, all right, I'm going to throw in one A24 film. And I do believe, I don't think it was, I think it was like eventually bought by A24. I don't know that it was produced by it, but like they got the rights to it. But yeah, you always just like throw in one. Like the last time you did this was with Midsommar, notably, which I hated watching, but I'm so grateful to have watched. So yeah, this is a similar one where I was like, wow, that sucked to go through, but it was a great movie.
Michael does love to throw in like the veggies that we have to eat to be like better people.
I don't know that this movie makes anyone a better person, but I do think that like watching it is really informative.
I am going to keep it a bit of a mystery for both my co-hosts and the listeners of what my opinions are for this movie, and you're going to be like, wow, really boring episode from Josh. No, I'm going to be throwing out some opinions that are going to be confusing on which way I ended up, but a little bit of an insight. I either really liked it or really didn't.
I mean, this is a good movie, so if you didn't like it, you're a herb, so.
Yeah, not to toot my own horn on my picks, but I really liked this movie. I'm not going to pretend that I didn't. I think this is a film.
I mean, you could. There is scarcely a movie in existence that more closely tailors to me specifically, having been both an ex-Catholic and a nurse. And I wrote a book that takes place partially in Scarborough, England, where this movie is set. Like, I was like, Jesus Christ. Like,
and you're also a little homophobic.
Yeah, but that's just, that's the byproduct of doing this podcast.
It's byproduct of hanging out with me and Michael for this many hours.
Correct.
Aaron, as someone who you have by far more experience when it comes to anything revolving the medical field than me and Michael combined, I am curious of what you thought of the overall nursing in this film.
I mean, like, the actual practice is all well and good. A lot of nursing really is just kind of banal stuff, like what Maud does with Amanda, which is, like giving her baths and kind of being there with her, kind of getting her through her medications, and like a lot of nursing is really just like not very glamorous. The main thing that that I remember from like basically all my time in nursing school and working in hospitals is like wiping butts. That's like a genuinely a huge portion of healthcare is making sure that people have clean butts. Because like nobody likes to talk about how getting rid of waste is just like a huge portion of medicine, but like that was a lot of it, and so yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the medicine in this stuff is pretty fine, and like I do kind of like that they're just like, yeah, it's work and it's not pretty. There's a couple scenes that are key that are just like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess that does happen, specifically when we're talking about CPR. But yeah, I mean, in general, I think the more important and interesting framework is how Maud takes her nursing and uses it as a like vessel for her own self-righteousness. I think that's what makes the nursing frame really interesting, because I bet every person who has ever been in a healthcare facility or knows somebody who went into nursing school is like, oh yeah, the meanest girl in school went to become a nurse because she had a savior complex. And like, yeah, I mean, I've thankfully not met too many of those people. I've met some of them, but yeah, I just really like how Saint Maud frames that whole kind of juxtaposition.
Yeah, I like how it kind of deals with the horror of adult conversion. Um,
That is exactly how I would describe it, as a horror.
And you're touching on something that I think all of us know, and it's like adult converts are the worst. They just, like, I know some people that are Catholic from, like, the born Catholic. They're like, yep, I guess I am Catholic. And even they'll look at me and be like, dude, that they converted, they're kind of in it too much.
The weird thing is like I know adult converts to like all sorts of religions who are very normal people. So that makes me think like this is just a choice. It is a choice to be this way.
I mean, that's true of most people who are religious freaks, but like, I don't know. In Catholicism especially, I think you get more of those zealots because of the rite of Christian initiation. Have you ever heard of RCIA, any of you?
Mm-mm.
So it's basically like if you want to convert to Catholicism, you have to do like a year-long like elective program to like make sure that you're really doing this, if you're doing this as an adult. And you know, at the end you get like baptized on Easter, and it's like a whole deal. But I do think it's very funny that's just like, well, you were raised wrong, so now we have to fix you, and you're gonna have to.
Now you have homework.
You're gonna get a year-long initiation, like in a fraternity. It's great.
God, no wonder we're kicking your asses up and down Africa with converts. Evangelicals, they just get you in a room. Sometimes you faint, sometimes you don't. Do you believe it? You'll feel bad about it forever.
That's the thing. Evangelicals are all about expediency. And that's really the difference between Catholicism and evangelicalism, is process.
It's the difference between like a local burger shop and McDonald's. We're about the numbers over here, baby.
Listen, can't argue with your results.
We're crushing it.
I think doing too well.
Now, I do want to start this very confusing podcast by saying this movie does an excellent job of showing us exactly who Maud is in like the very beginning. Like watching her kind of get ready and begin taking care of was it Amanda?
Yeah.
Instantly, she's like, "Hey, God, you're kidding, right? This is not all I'm doing."
I have the quote written down, but she's like, this is her voice, where mostly the entire film takes place like basically from Maud's perspective. We get her like her interiority, and she says, "Forgive my impatience, but I hope you will reveal your plan for me soon. I hope you have saved me for something greater than this. Not that I'm complaining." It's like, oh, this is how it's gonna be, huh?
But there's a beautiful image of who this character is. And I think it also goes to show that, like, this, like, Christianity in general gives people this, like, savior complex. And it really is kind of baked into the whole thing. You're not a nurse. You're out here saving souls, not lives, souls for, from eternal damnation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that even, that I think that's so interesting because I watched a video essay to like prep for this. A lot of these insights that I'm going to be saying are just straight from the essay Saint Maud. I'm finding the title. It's Saint Maud, God as a Self-Portrait by Acolytes of Horror. We'll drop that in the show notes, but I highly recommend it. But like, I think one thing that Acolytes of Horror really highlights is like, Maud is also a fucking dog shit evangelizer, because she's such a fucking I don't want to call her a freak, because she's like she's very antisocial. She's very awkward, right? And like that's kind of why I in a lot of ways was like, oh man, this is me if like I hadn't like immediately dropped Catholicism after leaving high school. Like I was like, yeah, I should be converting as many people as I can. Also, I don't want to talk to anyone.
I do like that when we talk about like our evil still very deep in the Christian weeds persona, that I think that I would be a like horrible televangelist out here on TV, like the some of the monsters we watched before, and Aaron watches this and goes like, yeah, that's my avenue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really is something to see, like a portrayal of a woman be antisocial. I feel like a lot of horror is about like men and their antisocial behaviors and how that kind of comes across in horror. And this is like truly a like unique portrayal of that, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's very interesting, you know, to contrast with, you know, Midsommar we just referenced, right? That's all about Florence Pugh's terrible boyfriend. And I actually
Almost the title.
Yeah, I actually rewatched The Witch this weekend with my wife because that movie owns, and that's all about the dad, the shitty dad who can't hunt. His
Almost the title
inability.
again.
His inability to like talk to his family. But yeah, that's a great point. That is like it is different for, it's usually, you know, like Rosemary's Baby. You can tell that like the only horror movies I watch are from this podcast because that's all I'm pulling from. But like, you know, like it's always like feminine as a victim as opposed to, you know, the woman as a victimizer. And we get both here in Saint Maud, which is nice. That's a quality that we love here at Bible Boys.
It is time that women can also murder.
Mm-hmm.
Get out there, ladies. Grab your pairs of scissors and stab people in the throat.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Spoiler alert.
Can we talk for a second about how unbelievably horny Maud is for God
Amanda.
and Amanda, but is same
Well,
thing?
Well, let's kind of. I don't think we've actually talked that much about the plot, but basically,
Yeah.
So Maud, you know, we at the beginning of the movie, we see Maud like trying to give CPR to a patient in like a dingy, horrible hospital room, and like a roach like crawls across the ceiling, and that's kind of like the end of the shot, and then there's a time skip. She's working as this like Catholic church in a palliative care like home service, like a visiting nurses sort of deal. And she's assigned to Amanda, who used to be like a dancer, choreographer, actress. You know, kind of a big shot. The pretty the nurse before Amanda when she's switching, not Amanda, before Maud when she's switching out her shift. Maud asks her, "How is she?" And the nurse says, "Bit of a cunt. Have fun."
That line was funny.
But Amanda Cole,
It made me laugh so much.
it's really good. But basically, Amanda Cole is her full name. She has stage 4 lymphoma of the spinal cord. So that's, you know, she's dying. Is kind of the frame. And that's, you know, what we talked about earlier. Maud is like kind of doing palliative care stuff, a lot of stretching, a lot of like bathing her, you know, just like trying to, you know, give her that support. That's what palliative care is. It's kind of supporting people through what is presumably going to be the last moments of their lives, days, weeks, months, etc. And that's kind of how Amanda and Maud's relationship develops, right? As Maud begins to like care for her, Amanda is like, you know, eventually the reason that Amanda even takes an interest in Maud's religion to begin with is because like she's like helping her stretch one day, and Maud's crucifix that she wears around her neck kind of falls out, and Amanda's like, "Oh, what's that?" And that's where we get like this relationship that builds up between them, and like you're saying, Josh, we start to get like this weird like pseudo-sexual tension between them, and then we get to see how deeply into religion Maud is.
Yeah, because I want to step in here. In this moment, like Amanda asks if like Maud's relationship with God, and Maud's like, I feel him, and I hear him speak to me, and I can feel when he's upset. And then like feels God move through her and just straight up starts moaning, and then like Amanda joins her in it and it's like, oh, I feel it too. And while this was going on, I just want to paint the picture of me chopping up pork chops so me and my beautiful fiance can eat dinner, as I have headphones in listening to two women moan about God. And it was in that moment that I was like, this is the weirdest, horny 18 question marks movie I've seen in a second.
It's so fascinating how they kind of play with this like religious ecstasy versus like physical ecstasy, because Amanda, we find out, is at least, sexually active with women. She has a sexual partner, Carol, who's there a lot of the time. And the idea that this could also be a religious thing from Maud's point of view, I think is really fascinating, and kind of like gets into some horror tropes, but spins them on their head, right? Like, in horror movies, you're really not supposed to have sex. That's a great way to die. But this one, it turns it into like this shared religious experience.
Yeah, you can bust it to God.
Yeah, that's actually a lot about Catholicism. That's like kind of the bedrock. I've been doing some research into the catechism for a video essay I'm going to release at the end of the month. And yeah, that's actually just paragraph 1608. You can bust it to God.
Now, it is wild that all of the American Catholics are getting all upset because the Pope came out and said, please bust it to God.
Here's the thing, Josh. They'd actually like him a lot more if he said that, because tradcaths in America are fucking insane.
I couldn't let us get through this podcast without Aaron screaming about the American schism that's going to happen.
Sorry, it's just like there's a bunch of tradcasts that are mad right now because Pope Francis fired a bishop that was like, what are you going to do, Pope? Fire me? And then he did. And then they're all like, I can't believe the Pope just fired this guy. It's not like he's some supreme dictator, some like, centralized authority figure. That's not how, like, fuck. You're in the biggest bureaucracy in the fucking planet, my guy. What did you think was... Tradcasts are funny and so stupid.
Looks like someone was on the wrong side of the 30 Years' War.
Yeah, it's so funny seeing all the memes of, like, all these Catholics discovering Lutheranism.
No, the Pope's reading the Bible wrong.
God. Yeah, it's...
Dumbasses.
Man, we are like... We've talked about this before on the podcast, but we are like a couple of bad presidents away from getting a whole new American Catholic Church. So, like, I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to make any predictions, but, like, it is entirely possible there's another schism in America, and it would be, like, both very, very stupid and extremely funny.
It would be great to visit the new Vatican in Nashville.
No, the new Vatican's gonna be in, like, fucking Boston.
No, it's gotta be in, like, literally middle of nowhere, Texas. There are no towns anywhere. It is just a field.
No. Catholicism likes decadence too much. It would have to be something big. We'll revisit this once the schism eventually happens.
Once they call us for help.
Anyway, do either one of you want to talk about so, like, what's happening in the movie right now is Maud is like, okay, I've zeroed in. This is my purpose. I know that this woman is an atheist. She's not really, she doesn't take religion seriously, but she seems to like me. We're starting to get along, and Maud immediately, like, gets into this mode. It's like, this is what God has sent me for. I found it. I'm gonna do it. And she, starts, like, doing a bunch of weird shit, the way that, somebody who is very uncomfortable and also very religious does. Like, she starts, like, painting, crosses on like, the rooms in Amanda's house, like with holy water, like, removing paintings and stuff. It's really interesting to see, like, the ways in which Maud is like also just so enveloped in this. And I think there's a bit here that I don't quite remember, but basically she's, like, praying, and, like,
yes,
the score starts to, like, ramp up, and, like, something weird is about to happen. They're clearly showing us the barrel of a gun here. and then like somebody interrupts her. But it was like, oh, something bad, like really weird and bad was about to happen, huh? And it's like, okay, so there's something going on with Maud that's not just she's uncomfortable. Like there's something either paranormal or like I don't want to use the word delusional. That's maybe not right, but like, you know, there is like a psychological aspect to Maud's belief in God that is strange and not, you know, normal, atypical.
I think it's the prayer scene you're talking about, but I find it really interesting that while praying, she Maud talks about how Amanda's body used to be used to like bring joy or bring good, and then she's like, "Please help her mind, which is filled with evil and sin, be like cleansed." And like Amanda opens her eyes and looks at her like, "What the fuck, man?" Now the part where Maud is taking like a larger role in Amanda's life, and she like begins butting up against Carol, I found really interesting. So much so that Maud tells Carol that she should stop visiting Amanda because it is like distracting from the purpose, and it is keeping Amanda away from finding God. Which immediately it's like, are you saying gay sex is going to keep her out of heaven? Because that's pretty standard Catholic, but like, Jesus Christ, man.
Yes. It's just I don't think you should be surprised by that. The Catholic default position is anti gay sex. The actual Orthodox position is that we love gay people. We just want you to be celibate your whole life.
Which again is what Aaron keeps telling me and Michael as soon as
I keep telling you. Michael could do whatever he wants.
Yes.
It might not be a Catholic thing. Aaron might just not like me. But I found this part really interesting because it starts with like this part where Carol stops showing up as much, and Maud feels like she's getting closer and closer with Amanda, and this all kind of comes to head with the birthday scene where Maud is setting up all these all the birthday stuff for... Is it Amanda's birthday?
Yes.
Yeah.
And at the party, Amanda reveals that Carol spoke to her about this conversation. I have to reverse for a second. After this horrible conversation Maud had with Carol that goes terribly and makes everyone feel uncomfortable, the next words from this movie is Maud very loudly in her head going, "That conversation went well." That's funny. I don't care who you are.
It's really good.
But in this party, Carol reveals that she knew that Maud was doing this, and she starts like calling her Saint Maud. Is like, I don't know if she's homophobic or just jealous. And I'm like, yep, that's the movie saying what it is. And ends up firing her, and then I can't remember how she insults her.
No. She doesn't get fired first.
Yeah. What did she say to set Maud off?
She basically says something. She's like starts making fun of the words that Maud used to describe her ecstatic visions, right? When Maud described them earlier as like a pulsing or a shiver, and she like likens. She's like, "Oh yeah, tell me more about your like gods throbbing and pulsing," and then Maud decks her.
Yep.
Yeah, just from a nursing perspective, that's generally frowned upon.
I want to ask you boys a question. I can't tell if I just fucking missed this. Why did Amanda hire a Catholic? Like, because it is from a Catholic company, right?
Yes.
So, like, why hire a Catholic nurse?
Oh,
Is it just because like she's not a Catholic lady?
So the short answer is because it's good for a movie to have themes. And the long answer that is like Catholic organizations do genuinely make up a large proportion of medical services in the world.
Gotcha. It's like if you want to adopt a kid, you're going through a religious organization.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I used to have a friend in high school. It was like if the it was because it was around the time that Obamacare happened, right? And like there was this like Affordable Care Act, ACA like supporting birth control mandate. And what he said was like, okay, if the Affordable Care Act like mandated that also insurers, all employers fund health insurance that covers medical care that like does support birth control and abortion services, that the all of the Catholic health organizations in the U.S. should just shut down, and then it would like completely like grind healthcare in the U.S. to a halt. Which, like, one, that's probably true. If that did happen, it would be catastrophic for healthcare in the U.S. And also, it presupposes that healthcare organizations, not just in the U.S. but anywhere, are mainly concerned about their like principles as opposed to making money, which is not the case. Having worked at a Catholic hospital that tried to close its ER because it wasn't making enough money.
It's a good
You
system.
love to see it.
I didn't last long there.
Neither does this guy in the movie later on.
Yeah. That is very true. But yeah, that's kind of like the big climactic moment of the
We're about to get to another climactic moment.
Yeah, we'll get there. Of the movie is like is Maud, slapping Amanda and getting fired, and then we see what Maud's life is like at home, and it's like really grim.
It's so depressing.
It's like a dirty college dorm with the freakiest Catholic mural you've ever seen.
It's like a weird altar, right?
It's a little bit like, because it's got like a circle shape to it, so it's like if you just were trying to fill the space, but all of the images were incredibly religiously disturbing.
Right, it's a bunch of freak shit. One thing in that video essay that I also liked, and instead I'm going to take from that, is like the juxtaposition between Amanda's house, which is very quiet and empty, and Maud's apartment, which is like loud, and she's always having the outside world intrude in upon her. And like it is constantly like this juxtaposition between Maud, who like is like a very reclusive person and does not is trying to keep the outside world out, and she was able to find that with Amanda. But now that she's returned to her own life, it's just kind of like, I can't escape. This sucks so bad. I'm constantly having to deal with other people, and it's it's rough.
But this is kind of where we see Maud like lose her religion for a while, and we see her instead of like leaving God, and she returns to a life that we find out that she previously had of like going to bars and hooking up with people. We see the first scene of her interacting with Amanda in a sexual way, which is funny because the other one is not, and it is disturbing. The first scene is her giving a hand job in a bathroom, and the guy goes, oh, and then nuts really quickly. And then he apologizes, and she goes back to her seat, and he just leaves and like starts hanging out with his friends. And like, I don't know, man, you proud of that? That makes you happy?
It's gross.
But she is not able to find any like companionship at the bar itself, and she starts seeing whirlpools in people's drinks.
I think one thing that's really interesting in this scene is like previously we skipped over this, but Maud runs into a nurse that she worked at when she was at the hospital, Joy. Like she kind of shows up and is just like, "Hey, Katie, how are you doing?" And we kind of learned that Maud, changed her name and everything. And she's like, "Well, you're still nursing," and they know what happened. And like, there's all this, it's like foreshadowing what the bad thing that happened during the first scene. Then like Joy's like, "Well, you know what, Maud, if you ever want to like hang out, here's my number." And then here Maud calls her, and she's like, "Oh, hey, do you want to hang out?" Like, trying to actually make a connection with somebody. And then like Joy, for whatever reason, can't. And she's like, "Oh, it's all right. I'm out with friends." And she's basically anytime somebody is like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Like there's another scene when she is still working for Amanda where like there's a guy who comes in to party with Amanda, and he's like, "Oh, I hope we're not kicking you out." And she's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go out, hang out with some friends." And she's like, "All right, or whatever," and like leaves her. And like Maud's whole character is about like isolation and like failed connections, and I think that is such an interesting it's just a really interesting character to be like, this person is trying very hard to make connections and is completely unable to find them.
I do also want to say that there are points where I think this movie does like really good dialogue, and we'll get to one scene specifically at the end that I think they do it really well. Joy running up to Maud and going, "They let you work after the incident," is the most movie line in this entire fucking film.
Yeah.
That happened. I was like, you've got to be. That was definitely the first draft, and no one went back over it. Has anyone else been talking about the scene that comes up? Because I don't like it.
I mean, it's supposed to be disturbing, right?
It does a good job being incredibly uncomfortable and hard to watch. So Maud, in freaking out because she sees all of the drinks around her are like have little whirlpools in them, and she ends up spilling a beer on a guy, and then like the next scene cuts to them having sex, and she's on top, and there's an interesting like cut where every time he goes to touch her, she like pushes his hands away.
Mm-hmm.
And then she starts having, like, it keeps flashing between her on top and then her doing CPR on an elderly woman. And there's also a cut between the man's boobs and the old lady's boobs, which must have been an interesting day to film. But it ends with her having a vision of, like, pushing her hands through the man's chest and, like, blood hitting her in the face. And we can kind of assume that's what happened when she gave CPR to the patient, or was I reading into that weird?
Yes, that's yes, 100%.
Can that happen?
So,
am I gonna be upset?
I guess content warning for conversations about CPR. That get kind of graphic. The first time I saw someone die, was
God damn, what a start.
Was when I was in nursing school, and an old woman was receiving CPR, and they didn't have the DNR thing, right? They didn't have the order film, so nurses are obligated to continue doing CPR, and I didn't look too closely, but like I just remember the way that poor woman's chest went down into her body as the nurses did CPR. And I will tell you, so you can break parts of the sternum. There are bits that you really shouldn't push. If you're doing CPR, there's a way to do it wrong. But like generally speaking, you're not going to go through the sternum, right? It's going to go down. It will compress like a whoopee cushion. It is not a fun thing to watch, and that's just what happened that day at the hospital until they finally were able to get a hold of the family, found power of attorney, and said, please stop doing CPR. But yeah, that if you take anything from this, if you have family members who are perhaps getting older, maybe talk to them about DNR and power of attorney, because you don't want that happening to you.
No.
This podcast has a section that we call Michael's Fun Facts, and we have a part where I make a joke about whether or not you said and Jesus wept, and now we have a segment where you tell us about where you saw people die, and I think that does make sense with how all of our personalities.
Yeah.
God damn, man.
Yeah, it fits.
That's not my worst story from nursing school, but I won't tell that one on the air because it's actually too gross.
I'm glad that you're happier elsewhere.
Yeah, no, I was not very good at nursing, and I didn't like it. So, I am still licensed, though. Funnily enough, so what do you want?
You made that sound like if me and Michael wanted a quick procedure. Like, you could just...
I mean, listen, I can do CPR on you if something bad happens. You won't like it.
So, and this scene does get worse from here, where the Maud stops having sex with the guy and starts having what looks like a panic attack or freaking out, obviously, because she just saw that. And then the man pretends to like care and like starts holding her and like is like, shh, it's okay, and then just continues to have sex with her as even after she says to stop, and she just kind of like stares.
Yeah.
She like disassociates fully.
It's just another example of this showing that this movie is trying to say that for her, none of the like physical contact, none of like sex is not bringing the ecstasy. Only like God does, and God around Amanda specifically from what we've seen. That scene was rough.
Yep. Not fun.
And then it's that we're not even done with like the shitty parts, and then the guy's like, "Oh, you slept with my friend like Chad."
Right.
And it's like,
Right.
Fuck you, man.
Yeah, no, it sucks. But that's kind of how we get that insight, right? She begins the movie by telling Amanda that her saint is that she takes after is Mary Magdalene, which, like, we've covered on this podcast 100 bajillion times. Like, all those rumors about Mary Magdalene are made up, but like it makes sense if you're trying to do a shorthand, like, oh, this is a girl with a checkered past.
And who better to believe that the lie from the Catholic Church than a Catholic convert?
Right, 100%. And then after this, we do get another ecstatic vision. It's just the Exorcist. Maud goes home to her apartment after her terrible night, and then she like begins to have a seizure. And then she just like floats up into the air like Reagan in The Exorcist, and it's I think this is really where you start to get like the paranormal slash psychological aspect, which is like how much of this is Maud making up in her own head versus whether or not this is an interpretation of like, is this really happening? And I think it's really interesting, and I just like this interpretation of like what like the ecstasy of saints and various religious figures looks like. I think it's a cool way to take that. And then, of course, we get into my personal favorite bits, which are like throughout this whole movie, Maud has had this like theme of like, for her, spirituality is both ecstasy and pain. There's a bit where she is like trying to like punish herself basically for fucking up at some point, and she burns her hand on the stove, and she's been like kind of picking at her burn throughout the movie, but now she had received a book of William Blake pictures from Amanda earlier in the movie, and now she cuts up the pictures and turns them into there's a specific word for this. It's called a spugna. I don't think that
spugna these nuts.
No, absolutely not.
Didn't work.
And basically what a spugna is Wikipedia calls it an instrument of penance used by some Christians who practice mortification of the flesh. The word spugna, literally meaning sponge, is made from a circular piece of cork that contains metal studs, metal spikes, or needles. So Maud takes the picture of William Blake and drives some nails through it, and puts it in her shoe and walks around Scarborough with nails through her foot. It sucks so bad. And I was like, yeah, this is the most Catholic movie I've ever watched.
Yep.
There is someone who spent an entire week with like grapes and shoes with like a microphone trying to get that fucking squishing noise just right, and I hope they have a bad day. It sucked.
It was so good though. Like,
yeah.
It was such a like evocative.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a scene that's gonna stick with me forever.
It's
horrible to watch. It's awesome. And like this is all framed with Maud like having this inner monologue to herself about how like she needs to focus on her purpose, and the last thing she says is like, never waste your pain. And it's like that is so much of the way that I read and continue to read Catholicism. Like literally the book that I just finished is all about like framing Catholicism as both a tool of imperialism and as also like weird pain cult. And like it's just I really don't. I mean, that's why you get like these things about Catholic guilt, right, being the main thing that all people who are raised in the church take away from it, because it is real. It's a very real thing, and yeah, I think it rips, and it sucked to watch, but like again, it's such an evocative moment. Like sometimes with horror, you have to go for the gross out, and they go for it.
It's gonna be wild.
They go for it without showing like any of the actual gore, right? Like what made that scene so powerful is that we had to fill it in with our own imaginations.
It's gonna be wild in the future to read Aaron's best-selling novel and be like, "Did you take that from the Vitch?"
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know if anybody will buy my book, but it's a good book nonetheless. But like, there's also a bit right where she's like getting ready for her like final, I'm gonna. The word that came to mind was assault, which is not really right, but like,
she's not that off.
She's gonna like infiltrate Amanda's house. She's gonna lay siege to her castle, basically, and but she's like prepping for this, and we get like the first like. The voice of God shows up here, and I was just like, this is great, because it comes in she's like watching a cockroach like kind of crawl around her her altar in her apartment, and it's just like, oh no. How'd you all feel about that?
Did you guys have subtitles on?
Yeah.
The website I watched it on did not have subtitles.
I don't know if this is true, because it's Amazon. They could just lie. The subtitles said, speaks in Welsh.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's up with that?
I think that's really cool. So the fact of the matter is, Mortified Clark, who plays Maud,
Mm-hmm.
she's Welsh.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and that's an interesting thing, right? Because like, also the voice of God is Mortified Clark, right? So so like you could definitely make the read that like, oh, she is talking to herself, but I think that's also an interesting way to be like, okay, but maybe like this is when I was religious, right? Whenever I thought God was talking to me, that was just my own mind, so that makes sense. But also like, it is a way to interpret God as the personal. And like as part of your like deepest inner psyche, but it's I mean, I don't know. I think it's great. I think it's such a fun thing, and also there's the whole like Britain as colonizing empire, and like the idea that Welsh is some sort of like pagan and somehow demonic past that still haunts it is a fun read, even though it's like not really supported by the text. I think it's still kind of fun to think about.
Because that's the thing, and this is where the turn happens. I've been very positive about this movie. A lot of what you're saying is super fucking rad and really cool. I feel like specifically with this part, the movie does not lay any groundwork for you to figure that out on a watch. This to me feels a little bit like the a bit more of a pretentious version of Prince of Egypt, where Moses also voices God. It just feels like the viewer. It feels like it's harder to connect those threads, and I don't even know if the movie wants those threads connected. It doesn't feel like it. Go ahead.
I would totally agree with you if it weren't for the very last scene in this movie, and I think it ties it together.
Right. This is an intentional confusion. They're like, okay, why is this so strange? And they answer the question in the last second, which we'll get to.
But now we have the siege of Amanda's house. As Aaron is.
Yeah, Maud like dresses herself up like a saint, wears rosary beads around her neck, which means she wasn't really paying attention in our CIA class. You're not supposed to do that. Come on.
Even I know that.
Yeah. Come on. Easy. But like, she goes. Sneaks into Amanda's house, and Amanda's like dying at this point. She's very ill. The new nurse who had replaced Maud goes home for the night. Maud shows up and is like, seeing her, and she looks very ill and is just kind of in bed. And they have this conversation. And she has like this. Amanda like sees Maud, and she's like, you know what, I'm I'm sorry. Like I'm sorry I was mean to you. I'm scared. I don't like dying. And like, but then like, Maud is still like in her religious feelings. She's like, you just have to, God forgives everything. You only have to ask. And then Amanda is just like, you really don't get this, do you? You don't know what was happening between us. Like, mate. And like, that's an interesting thing for the viewer, is like whether or not Amanda, actually did care for Maud at all, or if she was just fucking with her the whole time. But like, she, is like, you have no idea how dull it is to be dying, which is like, which is such a great all-time line, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then, she does also say, like, you must be the loneliest girl in the world. Just like completely obliterating Maud's whole life. And from there we get the Omen. We get we get the Grudge. And Amanda becomes a demon.
Yeah.
I do want to say, just to talk about that conversation a little bit more, there's something that I find really evocative and like entertaining when movies just cut everything but the dialogue, and between that back and forth, it is just Amanda and Maud. There's no background noise. You feel every silence, you feel every pause, and it just really throws you into what is just, in actuality, a conversation between two women sitting on a bed. But in that moment, you can feel like something is about to break, and what breaks is the gates of hell, and demons are here.
Yeah, I love how this film is truly a psychological horror, but uses all of the horror trappings that we would normally see,
Mm-hmm.
like in the score, especially.
Mm-hmm.
It leads to this foreboding sense of like eeriness and creepiness, and this scene was really eerie and creepy well before Amanda goes demon.
Yeah, it's just a great confrontation, and just like when Amanda does finally, turn into this monster, it is so clear that Maud has already been thoroughly defeated, and like that's kind of what happens, right? Is Maud, is like, sees her as a demon, is like, okay, now I have to kill you, takes the scissors that are by her bed, stabs Amanda to death, and like you get this spray of blood, just like in the beginning when she had
Mm-hmm.
killed her patient by doing CPR, gets the blood that trickles down her face. It is a return to that original image, that repeating of the same failure. And then, but Maud reads it differently.
Am I
Yes, he does.
mistaken that in the like when we see the scene of Maud stabbing Amanda in the throat, we see her stab her like 12 times, but when she moves back, we see like the knife, the scissors are still in Amanda's throat, and it was just like the one stab. Am I remembering that correctly?
I think you're right.
Like highlighting that what we saw happen is not what happened. Like Maud still killed her, but she just stabbed her once in the throat. They didn't have the demon versus woman fight.
Right. Where Maud gets like telepathically thrown against the wall.
And then Amanda's like,
Right.
You don't like God, loser? You
Mhm.
loser? Love God? Why do demons... frustrates me. All demons are like, you're a loser for not loving God. That's your deal.
We have my favorite scene in the film next. So
the end's really good
Maud,
also.
the end is so
Yeah.
good. The end to me cemented this film. Like there were times where I was wondering where we were going, and the end wrapped up every thread and every question I had.
Yeah.
So Maud goes to the beach and she pours acetone all over herself, and everyone's freaking out, obviously. And then she says, "Glory to God" in Welsh, and lights a lighter. And we've seen her kind of play with the lighter before in the film, but in her last moments, she like is ascending as an angel and everyone's bowing and praising. And then you get smash cut of her just like burning alive, screaming. And that's how the movie ends.
It's great. It's great. Like the whole, it's so good because when she kills Amanda, right? She like wakes up the next day and she has wings, right? Like the movie gives her like wings,
Mhm.
and like she has like a saint's halo. And like when she is walking towards the beach with the acetone, you can see all those like weird like vortexes that Josh talked about in the drink scene. From the bar, right? It is like she believes she is going to ascend into heaven, right? And when she does finally like ignite herself, there's this moment where all the people on the beach who are freaking out, they all bow down instantly. This like
Mhm.
they're all just like praising her. And like that's the point that this that video essay makes. Is just like you don't see the people's faces, right? You never see Maud like actually ministering to them or like you're trying to connect with them. Like this is an act that is purely for her own self. She's like, yeah,
Mhm.
this is, I am doing the thing that God wants me to do. Um, and like that's the thing, right? When the demon tells her, when she asks the demon, what am I to do, the demon slash god says like, you have always known, right? She's talking about herself and like her own motivations, and then
Mhm.
like that's this moment of like self-immolation. It's just really good. And then to be like, oh, and by the way, this is what was really happening at the very end.
Yeah.
Just really wraps it all up and be like, it's the only jump scare in the movie. It's so sick. And like there's something to be said about preserving ambiguity. But I do think that if this ending had been left ambiguous, I would not have liked this movie as much. But like, yes,
Mhm.
I think you're 100% right, Michael. That last second is just like, oh, now I know what's happening here.
Yeah, like this has all been a true horror.
Do you guys remember when we watched Midnight Mass? And there's
Mhm.
a scene with the main character on like a boat, and there's like
Yes.
it's very similar to this,
Yes, Riley in
where
his last
Mhm.
moments where he reveals he's a vampire in the morning.
yes, and like when this happened, that's immediately where my mind went because I do love Midnight Mass, even though I swear Mike Flanagan is trying to convince me that I'm already dead and I need to move towards the light. Um, I there was something about this scene that I found like it's weird. I look at the other scene with such like joy, and it is because of the different like perspectives. Where this scene is one just I think filled with uh, I don't know what the right word would be, but like there is no joy to be found here. All of it is an illusion, and all of it is in her mind, and that kind of makes it more. I don't know. It's a punch of an ending.
Yeah,
Yeah, it definitely didn't hold back.
yeah. But I mean, especially I feel like horror movies do endings so much better than like basically any other type of media, just because like there is like kind of a built-in like here's one last horrible thing to kind of reveal to the audience. But like
Mhm.
this is really truly a very good ending. Really stuck the landing.
Now, boys, I'm curious. What do you think I thought about this movie?
I mean, if you didn't like it, you're a fool. So I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what to tell you.
I want you to have liked it, but I don't think you did.
I hated this fucking flick.
God damn you.
I knew it.
Okay,
That's the wrong take.
give me like 45 seconds to defend myself, someone who's seen Avengers like 25 times. Um, I think this movie has a lot of really good ideas, and I think this movie executes in some beautiful scenes. But I felt like I was watching three or four really interesting short films, and the themes were there. I just feel like it is a bit of how do I want to explain this? There's a lot in it that I found myself uncomfortable for watching. Not because of the content was uncomfortable. Some of it I felt like I was getting beat over the head with it, and some of it I felt like it wasn't connecting it enough. It it just didn't connect with me. The silence that I'm gonna face from these two for the rest of my fucking life.
I mean, it's okay to be wrong. Listen, plenty of people are wrong every day. It happens to everyone.
This is one of those movies where it's right on that line where it frustrates me a little bit because I there's some movies that, and I hate using this term, some movies are just pretentious. The Lighthouse will always get that fucking stamp from me. I think I would still recommend this movie to other people that I knew like this genre. This genre will just, I don't think I'll ever like a psychological horror anything.
And see, I feel like firmly on the other side of this, where it, to me, tied everything in so neatly. Like, when I heard Maud speak in Welsh, I was like, oh, this movie's not going to let us guess if this is real or fake. Like, they are telling us this is the delusions of an unwell woman. And it also is a genre of media that I tend to just gravitate towards, which is woman coming unspooled. And what can I say? I mean, you give me one of those and I'm just there.
You said that, and immediately I was like, I need to make a movie marathon where we watch Carrie and Jennifer's Body, and then this, where you just get to watch women murder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the fact of the matter is, Josh, I support women's wrongs, and you gotta get with the program. It's 2023. That's feminism.
I guess I hate women, and I'll just have to accept that.
Okay, and that'll be the episode cold open. All right, let's rate this movie.
Damn it.
I do have some fun facts.
Oh, there we go.
For this very fun movie.
So, first of all, this is director Rose Glass's directorial and screenwriting debut.
Pretty good first movie.
Listen, even I didn't love it. That's an impressive first one.
Yeah, seriously.
Like, she's done short films before, but this was her first feature-length film. And she has another movie coming out, which is a romantic thriller starring Kristen Stewart, which
fuck yeah,
I'm sold.
Hell yeah.
There's not a single passage or verse from the Bible ever recited in this film.
No wonder the Catholics like it.
I found it
That's a pretty
interesting because it's, yeah. I found it interesting because it's like, yeah, this is about Maud and about Maud's religion, not about Catholicism, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's all I have. Oh, there is a early on when there are art posters in the closet. The first one has 666 on it, and I just found that really fun.
Sure.
All right, you guys wanna add this one to our ratings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna give it one. You can't start fires on the beach without a permit.
I'll give it Pope 9, Clement II.
I'm gonna give this 4 out of 5 angel wings because it just did it for me.
Okay, but we can all agree those angel wings were a little silly because they were like butterfly wings, kind of.
I mean, I feel like that added to it. You know, it's just like, oh, this is all weird and doesn't make sense. I liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when we're not, proving which one of the cast members has good taste in movies and which ones don't, where can we be found on the internet?
On fewer and fewer places.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. You can find me at Greenlight on Blue Sky or on Threads or that Greenlight on Twitter, but that feels like on borrowed time more and more.
You can find me at AA Voight on Blue Sky and on YouTube. I'm trying to think. Yeah, since this has come out, I did an essay on the tabletop game Heart: The City Beneath and Annihilation. So if you're into some spooky stuff, please check that out. And also, hopefully at the end of this month, I'll have another essay out about the tabletop game Hell Whalers and its intersection with the Catholic sermon, The Fewness of the Saved. So if either of those, we'll do something for you, I promise. But yeah, if you all are just can't wait to see how spooky season escalates, it's got you, it's bringing tears to your eyes. Just remember that it is okay to cry, because even Jesus wept. We'll see you all next time.